Chapter 51 New Secretary. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Back to the rental house, Kumeng didn't come. Just when I was about to call, if you promised me to invest, you still have to take action. Just thinking about it, Chen Changliu was excited, but before he could call, Kumeng called. After hanging up the phone, Chen Changliu was speechless. He had just broken his vow for 2 days, and he still had to stay alone in an empty room. Kumeng had to do her father's work at home and comfort her mother at the same time, so she wouldn't come tonight. On September 30th, the futures market opened. Chen Changliu didn't go to school today. Anyway, there were only 2 classes, so he just skipped it. After the bidding, the market officially opened. The opening price actually reached 28.95, which made Chen Changliu excited. When it rose to 29.08, it was not strong enough. When it was repeatedly fought around 29.05, Chen Changliu decisively sold all of them. All 206 lots were sold at 29.05, with a net profit of 110,000 yuan, and his net assets reached 700,000 yuan. On the same day, Chen Changliu transferred 100,000 yuan to purchase some items for the company in the early stage. Then he bought 207 lots at an average price of 28.90. On the afternoon of October 1st, the interview of the flower-growing family was held in a simply decorated conference room. The most important thing was the financial and technical personnel. However, Chen Changliu was an outsider in technology, so he handed it over to Wu Bo directly. After 3 days of busy interviews, 10 qualified technical personnel were finally admitted. In terms of finance, Chen Changliu did not find a more suitable veteran, and finally reluctantly recruited a 30-year-old young woman who had given birth to 2 children. The young woman's name was Lu Lanhong. In Chen Changliu's opinion, her ability was average, but the better one was to get married and have children, which was stable. There were other messy positions. However, on the 3rd day, Chen Changliu grabbed Kumeng and asked her to do some miscellaneous work. At night, in the rental house, after Chen Changliu and Kumeng had a big fight, Chen Changliu leaned comfortably on the head of the bed and lit a cigarette. Well, it was like a god. Chen Changliu did not have any smoking addiction, but he just liked to hold a cigarette at this time. Kumeng lay exhausted on his chest, and it took a long time for him to recover. She slapped his arm and said with gritted teeth, "You want to die, you are just an animal. I am already very tired helping you with chores during the day, and I have to, at night, you don't even know how to feel sorry for me." Looking at Kumeng's red face and gritted teeth, Chen Changliu laughed. "Who called me what just now?" And, before Chen Changliu finished speaking, Kumeng bit a tooth mark on his arm. The two laughed for a while, and Kumeng said, "I didn't expect you to start a company quietly. Wow, you are young and promising." Although it was a teasing tone, Kumeng actually admired him very much. She felt that everything about this man was a mystery. Chen Changliu stroked her hair. "Why don't you stop interning at the futures company and come and be my assistant? You know, I still have to go to school and I can't spend too much time in the company. I feel more at ease with you watching over me." When Kumeng heard Chen Changliu say that he could feel at ease if she went there, she felt sweet in her heart, but she still said, "What? To put it nicely, it's an assistant, but to put it bluntly, isn't it just a secretary?" It's all the same, senior sister. Have you heard this saying? What? The bosses in the company are all secretaries when they have something to do, and they have nothing to do. The last 2 words were said by Chen Changliu in Kumeng's ear. Kumeng couldn't help but take action directly, going straight to the vital point, and directly subdued Chen Changliu. I knew you were a little pervert, thinking about these messy things all day long. TSK, senior sister, when I don't want to do messy things to you one day, you have to cry, because that means I have changed my mind. Kumeng was speechless to Chen Changliu's words, as if it was really the case, but when she thought of him having a girlfriend, she was sad again, and said faintly, "I know, you have your little girlfriend, what am I?" After saying that, she turned her back to Chen Changliu. It was impossible for Chen Changliu to hide his contact with Du Jiqiu during the past few days, and Chen Changliu didn't want to hide it. Anyway, he said he had a girlfriend before the two had a relationship. Looking at Kumeng's jealous look, Chen Changliu had no choice. He didn't know what to say. His mind turned, okay, there was no way to say it, but he could resolve it with actions. He did it as he thought, and hugged Kumeng from behind. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, no, I haven't recovered yet. No, you're serious. Brother. Ba ba. The next day, Chen Changliu was refreshed, and although Kumeng didn't look very energetic, her skin was white and rosy, pink and tender. When the two of them appeared in the company together, the 10 people in the technical department plus Wu Bo, 11 people, all stared at them, and then they remembered that the boss brought them here, and then they looked away. Chen Changliu also introduced Kumeng to everyone, and everyone knew that she was the boss's assistant. Chen Changliu's office was on the 3rd floor, and he gave a document to Wu Bo. Brother Bo, this is the style of the product I designed. Take a look. It has the size, material, and product requirements marked inside. Of course, I'm not a professional. You can take it back and study it to see if there is anything that needs to be improved. P.S. The typos will be updated first and corrected later. Chapter 52 Chen Changliu's first product design draft. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After listening to Chen Changliu's words, Wu Bo was a little surprised. As far as he knew, Chen Changliu's studies had nothing to do with electronics. What kind of constructive suggestions could he make for MP3 products? He took the document half-heartedly, and then read it. Then, he didn't leave, but sat down and read it attentively, and his face showed a surprised expression from time to time, and then he looked up at Chen Changliu with complicated eyes, and then continued to read the document. Kumeng was very curious about what information this little man and his family gave Chief Engineer Wu that really fascinated him. Yes, Wu Bo is now the chief engineer of the flower-growing family. Chen Changliu was not surprised by Wu Bo's reaction. After all, the information he gave him was only pushed out in 2006, and it became a hot-selling product that year. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the #1 domestic sales, that is the Meizu M6. Chen Changliu directly copied it according to his impression. What Wu Bo saw was in the information, and the requirements for every detail were written very clearly. First of all, there are pictures, with front and back and side exploded diagrams. This MP3 player has a 72.4-inch display screen. Next to the display screen is a combination of touch and press buttons, similar to a lying cross, which is simple, beautiful and generous. The operation of the buttons is similar to that of iPod, except that in addition to pressing the confirmation button below, the M6 can also lightly touch the center of the touch area with your finger, which feels like using a touch mouse on a laptop. There are also small buttons on the top and bottom of the machine. The top one is the power on and play/pause button, and the bottom one is the lock switch. The overall button design is also very simple. On the right side of the body, all the interfaces of the machine are concentrated, including the headphone output jack, USB transmission interface, built-in mic jack and lanyard hole. There are not many interfaces and they are extremely simple. For example, the headphone output looks relatively small, which is not a common headphone jack. Such a design made Wu Bo, who has been studying MP3 these days, see it on iPod. He liked this appearance as soon as he saw it, which made him look up and look deeply at Chen Changliu, and then continue to read. The following are all texts, which are requirements for details everywhere. The shell is made of a material very similar to that of Apple's iPod. Wu Bo imagined that the model in the picture would be simple and noble with this material, which is very Apple-like. Although the material is similar to that of iPod, the document requires that it should be much more wear-resistant. A layer of transparent film with high wear resistance has been pasted on the panel before it leaves the factory to prevent the appearance of terrible scratches like iPod. The back is also made of stainless steel. Chen Changliu was not very clear about the screen requirements, so he did not make any requirements and let the engineers adjust them themselves. But he required 260,000 colors and 100 levels of brightness adjustment, data transmission, high-speed USB 2.0, read speed of about 8 megabytes per second. Write speed of about 5 MB/s. Capacity, 2 GB, 4 GB, 8 GB. The battery requirement is a built-in lithium battery, which is charged through the USB port. A full charge must be less than or equal to 2.5 hours, for up to 20 hours of continuous music or 6 hours of video. Audio playback, maximum output power of headphones, distortion, signal-to-noise ratio, sound adjustment, browsing pictures, and video playback are all listed in the file, but Chen Changliu did not understand it either, so he could only mark it and let the engineers adjust it themselves. There are also FM radio stations, FM frequency range, number of FM pre-stored radio stations, signal-to-noise ratio 50 dB, recording source, etc. It is recommended to use screens from Wolfson, Philips's Jingyuan, Toshiba, and Samsung, mainly developed and adjusted by engineers. The document also requires other functions, such as synchronized lyrics display, e-books, clocks, calculators, calendars, games, etc. Half an hour later, Wu Bo finally finished reading the document. He stood up and said with excitement but a little worry on his face, "Mr. Chen, your document can help us explore a lot and save a lot of RD cycles. Although I just read it briefly and haven't demonstrated it yet, this product will definitely be subversive once it is launched on the market. However, for your requirements, the cost of this product will be much higher, although the technical content is not very high. A decoding chip, a control chip, a flash memory chip and a circuit board are combined together. According to the average cost, it is definitely more than 500 yuan. I am only talking about the lower cost. If we add other electronic components, packaging and accessories, OEM or our own product design and mold development, the cost of this product will be higher than you expected. This does not include sales expenses, advertising investment, middlemen's profits, and retailers' profits. Therefore, the terminal sales pricing of our MP3 has no advantage in the market, but a disadvantage." Hearing Wu Bo's analysis, Chen Changliu has a better understanding of Wu Bo's ability. In such a short time, he can take into account all the factors such as product costs and terminal prices. "It is really good." Chen Changliu nodded and looked at Kumeng. "I say, Kumeng, you are not qualified as an assistant. Brother Bo and I have been here for so long, and you don't know how to pour us a glass of water. Be careful that I will deduct your salary." Kumeng was embarrassed by Chen Changliu's words, but he didn't dare to not give Chen Changliu face in front of Wu Bo. "Sorry, Mr. Chen, Mr. Wu, I neglected it." After saying that, he stepped on his leather shoes to pour water, but when he turned his head and Wu Bo couldn't see him, he bared his teeth at Chen Changliu, which was considered a threat. Wu Bo said quickly, "Assistant Ku, it's okay, I'm not thirsty." Regardless of seeing that Kumeng had gone to pour water, he only glanced at the seductive back and moved away, telling himself in his heart that it was the boss lady. P.S. The typos will be corrected after the update. Chapter 53 Request. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not long after, Kumeng brought water to Chen Changliu and Wu Bo. When Wu Bo took it, he politely said thank you. Chen Changliu did not say a word of politeness, but touched Kumeng's hand in front of Wu Bo's sight, which attracted Kumeng's eye roll again. However, when Kumeng sat aside again, she did not listen to the conversation between the two. After all, she had just come here, and she only knew a little about Chen Changliu's conversation, especially now that it involved the cost of wafers. She didn't understand it even more. She was now both sweet and troubled by Chen Changliu secretly touching her hand. The sweet thing was that she could feel Chen Changliu's fascination with her, but the trouble was that this guy seemed to open the gate after tasting it, asking too frequently. Plus he was in good physical condition. She felt that. She didn't get enough sleep in the past 2 days. Chen Changliu didn't know what Kumeng was thinking, otherwise he would have laughed narcissistically. Chen Changliu did not comment on Wu Bo's concerns about the cost, the packaging and accessories. The difference is mainly in the headphones. For MP3, earphones play a very important role in sound quality. Generally, domestic brands use earphones that cost no more than 10 yuan. Some products cost only 2 or 3 yuan, or even less. Of course, Chen Changliu will definitely not use such poor earphones. At least the sound quality must be acceptable. As for packaging and materials, it can save a lot of money. As for advertising costs, huge advertising costs and high profit margins are the reasons for the high prices of Korean and Japanese brands. Some manufacturers invest hundreds of thousands of yuan in advertising every month. After amortization, each MP3 increases the cost by dozens of yuan. Chen Changliu has already known this. With the launch of a tool this month and a platform behind it, Chen Changliu thinks he can cooperate with the other party. Although the flower-growing family is a small ant in the eyes of the other party, Chen Changliu feels that his plan still has a great chance of being recognized, and he has already done half of the planning case. This is extremely important for the subsequent sales of the first MP3 of the flower-growing family. The competition of MP3 is the competition of design. The investment in design is huge. Generally, a product costs at least 50,000 to 60,000 yuan, and as much as hundreds of thousands of yuan, from appearance design, first edition, and mold. Most domestic manufacturers are unwilling to invest in product design, and adopt OEM to buy mold products, so that the cost of product design and molds can be saved. However, Chen Changliu has already done the design, and the next step is for engineers to do internal design of circuits and other aspects. Chen Changliu has also made up his mind to find a foundry, and the current flower grower does not have the capital to produce it by itself. As for the cost of after-sale service, Chen Changliu has not considered it yet. After all, it involves too many things, and his next model is not suitable for the after-sales model of some manufacturers. Another hour passed after Chen Changliu and Wu Bo communicated, and Wu Bo also understood Chen Changliu's positioning and requirements for this product more clearly. Brother Bo, I hope this product can make our flower-growing family famous. It doesn't matter if the profit is a little less. You know, MP3 is not our end, it's just our starting point. Chen Changliu's words made Wu Bo nod and said seriously, "Don't worry, Mr. Chen, we will definitely go all out." Okay, I believe you. If there are any equipment that has not been purchased, hurry up and complete it. In mid-October, I will transfer another 1 million to the company's account to ensure that you have sufficient research and development funds. My request is very simple. I want to see the prototype before the end of December. Wu Bo did not answer immediately, but thought for a while and said, "Guarantee to complete the task." Hearing Wu Bo's sonorous answer, Chen Changliu smiled, "Tell everyone, as long as the task is completed, everyone will get the bonus." In fact, Chen Changliu gave them 2 months for a reason. He had already helped them complete the appearance design. They only needed to do a good job of internal layout and tuning after integrating various components. It is not impossible to complete it in 2 months. If his requirements were not high, Wu Bo might have led the team to get it done in 1 month. When Wu Bo went out with full energy, Chen Changliu looked at Kumeng, who was still sitting there in a daze, and shook his head. It seemed that she was not so fast to get into the role, but it didn't matter, there was plenty of time. Assistant Ku, Secretary Ku. Chen Changliu called Kumeng twice before she came back to her senses and looked at Chen Changliu with a puzzled face. Chen Changliu looked at the expression on her face and thought it was very funny. He coughed twice and said with a straight face, "Secretary Ku, I'm tired. Please massage my shoulders and head quickly to relax me." Kumeng's eyes widened when she heard what Chen Changliu said. What the hell? He called her assistant for a while, and then he called her secretary. Now he asked her to massage him. Kumeng didn't answer. She gritted her teeth and stood up. She walked behind Chen Changliu with a murderous look on her face and stretched out her hand. "Ah. It hurts. I don't want it anymore. It hurts." In the end, Chen Changliu hugged her and sat her on his lap. The pain in her shoulder ended. "I said you are murdering your husband, it hurts." Kumeng pouted and snorted, "Humph, who told you to be so unruly, calling me assistant one moment, secretary the next, asking me to pour water, and then asking me to give you a massage. Humph, you really know how to enjoy yourself. Hee. When there are people around you are the assistant. When there are no people around you are of course my secretary. You know, the secretary is the boss's personal person. You say we are close enough, negative distance." Listening to Chen Changliu's rogue words, Kumeng was about to refute, but Chen Changliu pressed his lips against hers, and the words turned into a whimpering sound, and then a moment later, it turned into a slurping sound. When Kumeng was almost out of breath, she pushed Chen Changliu away, and then slapped off Chen Changliu's claws to conquer the highlands. "Humph, rogue, all you have in your mind all day long. Senior sister, you're not annoying, you enjoy it more than me. Bah, shameless, I won't pay attention to you, I'm going to check some information. Kumeng tidied her clothes and ran out. She didn't really believe in Chen Changliu's determination. P.S. The typos are corrected later. Chapter 54 Family Law. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Until get off work in the afternoon, Chen Changliu had been perfecting the plan he was preparing. During this period, no one came to disturb him, not even Kumeng. Seeing that it was almost 5:30, Chen Changliu put the planning book into his bag, stretched, picked up the bag and left the office. Next to Chen Changliu's office is Kumeng's office, which is as simple as Chen Changliu's, with a desk, a chair, and a bookcase behind him. These desks and chairs were all left over from the previous company and were given to Chen Changliu at a cheap price. Chen Changliu walked in quietly, and Kumeng was looking at the laptop screen attentively, which she had brought here. Kumeng didn't notice Chen Changliu coming in. She was filling in the work that a qualified assistant should complete, as well as the current development of the MP3 industry, existing technology, and some information about various brands. Chen Changliu walked behind her and saw what she was reading. He couldn't help but look at her with admiration. It seemed that she was really not a vase. She knew what she wanted to do at this stage, what she wanted to master, and what she wanted to improve. Anyone who can consciously do this is a qualified workplace employee. As for how high her ability can reach, it depends on her understanding. Chen Changliu stretched out his hand to rub her temples, which frightened Kumeng. He almost jumped up, but her hurried getting up and turning around also made her knees hit the desk. While she cried out in pain, she also saw Chen Changliu behind her. Only then did she relax. Then she pouted and bent over to touch her knees, with tears brewing in her eyes. Chen Changliu was stunned. It was expected that Kumeng would be frightened, but it was unexpected if he bumped his knee. He quickly walked around, squatted down to help her look at her legs, and said apologetically, "I'll go and see how the injury is. It's okay. The skin is not broken. It'll be fine in a while. I'll give you a blowjob. It hurts. It's all your fault. Why did you scare me when nothing happened? Who did I think it was?" Seeing Kumeng with tears brewing in his eyes and his tone a bit coquettish, Chen Changliu couldn't bear it. "Oh, I was wrong, I shouldn't have scared Assistant Ku. Be good, don't cry, come on, give me a hug, you'll be fine in a while, be good." After signing the unequal treaty, Chen Changliu finally coaxed Kumeng and put a smile on his face again. In the next few days, everyone at Zhonghuajia Technology Company, Limited was busy, including Chen Changliu. He gave himself the position of product director. As product director, he has to be deeply involved in the product research and production process. Therefore, frequent meetings with technical staff for demonstration are essential. Kumeng insists on continuous learning every day. She is now both an assistant and a secretary, so she has properly arranged what Chen Changliu has to do in the company. Of course, this is also related to the fact that Chen Changliu and the flower grower company don't have much to do. The National Day holiday passed by in a flash. On the afternoon of October 7th, Chen Changliu abandoned Kumeng and went to pick up Du Jiqiu alone. The two of them had dinner together before returning to the rental house. When he returned to the rental house and saw Kumeng, he finally understood what it means to have a face but not a face. Kumeng didn't give him a good look anyway. Kumeng knew that he knew, but knowing and being generous were two different things. His little man went to pick up the Empress of the palace, and it was impossible for her to still greet him with a smile at home. "Senior sister, beauty Kumeng, Meng Meng, Xiao Meng, dear." "Oh, that's disgusting." Finally, Chen Changliu used his shamelessness to let Kumeng break her guard, but soon she began to sigh and frown. "Hey, how dare I be angry? What right do I have to be angry? I'm just a mistress, hey. Hey, which woman has a life as miserable as mine?" Chen Changliu didn't know whether she did it on purpose or not. Although he couldn't shake his heart, it was not a problem for a beautiful woman to always feel sorry for herself in front of you. "Senior sister, you ask for this. Anyone who dares to act yin and yang in my place will be treated with family law." After saying that, he couldn't react, hugged her, put her on his shoulders, walked to the sofa, threw her on the sofa, and finally started laughing. "Girl, you've pissed me off, I want you to know how powerful my family is." Kumeng didn't know whether he was really scared or fake. He shrank directly to the corner of the sofa and said in anxious and hesitant words. What are you going to do, little man? I know I'm wrong, can you please let me serve you without the family law? What are you going to do? What kind of family law is this? Serve me with a stick. My family's method is to add a stick to my body. When Chen Changliu got up the next day, Kumeng was still sleeping in, so he slapped her on the butt. "Get up, I have 2 classes in the morning, so I won't go to the company. You go and sit here for me. If you need anything, call me, I'll be there in the afternoon. You can go to the company later and bring my notebook with you. I'll be reading the market in the afternoon." After a night of domestic service, Kumeng, who had been temporarily tamed, opened his sleepy eyes and replied with a thick nasal voice. "Well, I understand, big brother." "Oh, no, it's a little man." Chen Changliu kissed her on the lips and then went to school. Last night was too crazy and he got up a little late today. He didn't have time to run in the morning or buy breakfast for Kumeng. After Chen Changliu left, Kumeng lingered for a while before getting up. Smelling the scent of Chen Changliu in the bed, Kumeng smiled brightly in the sunshine. P.S. The typos will be corrected later. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Chapter 55 The Devil in the Heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Chen Changliu appeared in the dormitory, it was less than 30 minutes before the morning advanced mathematics class, but none of the 5 people in the dormitory got up. Dang dang dang! Chen Changliu banged the iron frame bed until it shook and shouted. "Get up, you're almost late. I've bought breakfast for you. Hey, you guys are just a bunch of pigs. You don't look like the pillars of the motherland. You're a street kid with a male turtle in your mouth. Oh, third child, can you be a human being? Young horseman, brother Lu, do you want to challenge all of us?" All kinds of national curses also followed one after another. Of course, Chen Changliu didn't mind the national curse in this situation. While eating breakfast by myself, I packed away the textbooks I would use later. The 6th child, Fang Jinglin, was the first to get up. He was so anxious that he didn't even brush his teeth. He grabbed the buns and ate them, mumbling something in his mouth. "Brother Lu, are you so early today? This is a bit unlike you. Count how many classes you have skipped since the beginning of school. I heard from Zhao Wuyan that the counselor is going to cause trouble for you." "Hey, Chen Changliu, you're done. Counselor Wu Ling asked me to give you a message. You are skipping classes. You will definitely be on the list of students who failed this semester." Chen Changliu was speechless when he saw Zhao Wuyan dangling in briefs and the gloating smile on his face. "Old Zhao, you are so arrogant. Have you successfully confessed your love to Counselor Wu Lin? Or maybe Huang Yanling successfully confessed her love to you?" Puff. Ha ha ha. Fang Jinglin squirted out the soy milk he drank in his mouth, while other people who were getting up burst out laughing and lay back on the bed to roll around. Zhao Yuan, who had just been gloating about his misfortune, immediately turned pale and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He glared at Chen Changliu without saying a word. "Mada, who is Huang Yanling? She is the most powerful woman in their class, at least 1.5 times stronger than Zhao Wuyan." He thought that if the two of them were together, Huang Yanling would crush Zhao Wuyan's short ribs. Thinking of this, Chen Changliu couldn't help but spit out the soy milk in his mouth with a pop. Zhao Wuyan saw these guys laughing wildly, and he couldn't help but picture Huang Yanling and himself hugging each other in his mind. His face became paler, and after he calmed down, he said speechlessly, Laugh, I changed my mind. Now the target of my attack is Bai Jing. When I pick this flower, I will envy you to death." Hearing Zhao Wuyan's words, Guo Fan was not happy because the others were fine. Zhao Wuyan, don't make random jokes. You know Bai Jing is the one I'm pursuing right now. Why are you stepping in again? TCH, have you caught it? Why can't I pursue? Yes, the two of them choked again. In the whole dormitory, Zhao Wuyan could be said to often choke with everyone, mainly because this guy was not very honest in his actions and his mouth was very mean. In the midst of the commotion, everyone entered the classroom despite the ringing of the school bell. As soon as he entered the large lecture hall, Chen Changliu found that there were many people, so he asked in surprise. Who are you going to play with in this high math section? Li Liang said casually, professional in radio and television editing and directing. Chen Changliu froze when he heard that the radio and television director was a major, and an unforgettable scene from his past life appeared before his eyes. Although the face of the figure was blurred, the dialogue of the scene was still clearly imprinted in his mind. In front of the school gate, in a BMW, a slender young man was sitting in the cab, looking at the co-pilot and Chen Changliu outside the co-pilot as if he were watching a show, and a pure-looking girl with a delicate face was sitting in the passenger seat, looking at the sunny and handsome boy outside the car door with a look of disbelief mixed with sadness and said ruthlessly. Chen Changliu, it is impossible for us. We have had wonderful memories, but we are all people living in reality. You have nothing, and now even the tuition for school is earned by working part-time. I don't want to be like you. I don't want to live a life like this where I can't see the future. You can't give me the life I want. We're done here, don't bother me anymore. This scene resurfaced again because of the words radio and television director professional, because that woman, his first girlfriend Li Han, is a student in this class. Chen Changliu didn't want to look up and search for this woman. He no longer wanted to have any interaction with this woman. He was about to exit the classroom, but the teacher had already walked in. Under the teacher's gaze, he had no choice but to run to where dormitory 311 was gathered, and in the few seconds he was in a daze, he became the most handsome boy in the entire lecture theater. Is this handsome guy majoring in business administration? He's so handsome. He is very handsome, but he seems a bit stupid. He just stood there in a daze. I wonder if he has a girlfriend. Various discussions arose among the girls majoring in TV directing. Similarly, an innocent-looking student also saw Chen Changliu, and the impression given to her was that he was equally handsome. After class, Chen Changliu didn't hear what the teacher was saying because the scene from his previous life reappeared in his mind. Chen Changliu found that as his memory became clearer, he understood his heart better. In the dark side, there was a black Chen Changliu, who always wanted to take revenge on everyone who had hurt him and felt sorry for him. Chen Changliu finally understood why he had never thought of not attending this university after his rebirth, instead of starting a business directly, because he had a devil in his heart. After Chen Changliu reanalyzed himself again, he felt much more relaxed. Forget it. She has nothing to feel sorry for herself. Everyone has the right to pursue their own life. Besides, now he already has two girlfriends who are more beautiful than her, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. As long as he doesn't have any intersection with her in the future, it should be fine. But Chen Changliu didn't know that his silly moment just now had already made his sunny and handsome image fall into the eyes of others. Women and men are actually the same. The first thing they see is the appearance, otherwise there wouldn't be so many one-night stands. P.S. Typos will be updated first and corrected later. Chapter 56 Goodbye Ex-Girlfriend. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Damn, the quality of girls majoring in TV directing is much better than that of our class. Yeah, I agree. Look, there is a girl who is a little prettier than Bai Jing. Bai Jing is 85, and she is at least 87. Wow, I found that I am in love. The other people in dormitory 311 looked up and down in the lecture hall and kept giving scores, and Guo Fanwei was the one who said that he was in love again. The others sneered. When Chen Changliu was thinking about it, Guo Fanwei patted his shoulder and whispered. Old Chen, you always say that your girlfriend is beautiful. Look at that beauty over there. Is she as beautiful as your girlfriend? Hee, I have decided that she is my target. Chen Changliu came back to his senses and looked in the direction of Guo Fanwei's gaze. Although he was prepared in his heart, when he saw that face, the face that had been blurred in his memory became clear. Yes, it was her. the ex-girlfriend he loved for 3 years, the ex-girlfriend who abandoned him, and the ex-girlfriend who made him understand the reality of society. Guo Fanwei saw Chen Changliu didn't say anything, just staring at the girl he liked. He felt a little guilty, because he knew Chen Changliu's lethality to girls. "Old Chen, what are you doing? I'm telling you, you already have a girlfriend, don't come to snatch it from me." Chen Changliu didn't answer directly when he heard Guo Fanwei's words, because he still had a knot in his heart. Most men would not say "I'm optimistic about you" when someone said in front of him that they were going to pursue his ex-girlfriend, except for those who like to read cuckold stories and have special fetishes, otherwise it can only be said that the person is hypocritical enough. Chen Changliu never believed that if you can't be lovers, you can still be friends. In his concept, love is selfish, there is only getting and not getting, and you can still be friends after losing without getting. He shook his head, suppressed his wild thoughts, and then said lightly, "Forget about her, she is far from it, otherwise what do you think is called the taillight that Bai Jing can't see?" This is a bit pretentious. Guo Fanwei was a little speechless, but Li Liang and Fang Jinglin really agreed. Chen Changliu couldn't calm down in the morning class, and ran away as soon as the bell rang. Seeing that it was still early, he ordered lunch and milk tea for everyone in the company on the way to the company. The current Zhonghuajia has not set up its own canteen, and employees have to go out to eat every day at mealtime. These days, after the technical department received his design manuscripts, the work enthusiasm was very high. As a boss, appropriate rewards are still acceptable. When entering the gate of Zhonghuajia, the entire first floor was empty except for the girl in charge of reception as the facade. To be honest, for the current scale of Zhonghuajia with less than 20 people, such a large venue is a waste, but Chen Changliu didn't care. This single-family building just fits his early plan for the company. The employees were very happy that the boss brought them lunch. After Chen Changliu took Kumeng's lunch and milk tea, he went to her in person. Chen Changliu didn't knock on the door, but pushed it open. Kumeng frowned when she heard someone come in without knocking. She looked up and saw that it was her little man. She smiled helplessly and said, "I was wondering who came in without knocking. It turned out to be the boss. What's the matter? Do you want to check on us?" "Hee, how dare I check on our beautiful Lady Ko? I'm not afraid of the employees rebelling." Although Kumeng eats alone in the office every day, instead of gathering together like other people, it doesn't mean that she is not sociable. The most important thing is that wherever she goes, she is the most eye-catching. Most of the people in the company are men, so she still has to pay attention to some influence. She knows that her little man is still very jealous. Moreover, as Chen Changliu's assistant, according to some theories she has learned, she should know how to keep a proper distance from her subordinates, but at work, she doesn't put on airs like a leader. She's very friendly, so Kumeng is very popular in the company, but I don't know whether people recognize her more for her looks or her abilities. Kumeng rolled her eyes at Chen Changliu and took the milk tea without hesitation. This is her favorite, and she can accept drinking a cup of milk tea without lunch. Looking at Kumeng, whose eyes almost turned into crescents after taking a sip of milk tea, Chen Changliu said meanly, "The ancient said that what you eat replenishes what you eat, and it seems that the summary is very accurate. Bah, a dog can't spit out ivory." After lunch, Chen Changliu returned to his office, turned on his laptop, logged into the software, and checked the trend of soybeans in the morning. Before the National Day holiday, it closed at 2,900, and this morning it opened at 2880, a drop of 20 points, and then the entire morning fluctuated between 2860 and 2880, and the morning closing price was 2872. Chen Changliu is now fully invested. He bought 207 lots at 2890 before the National Day, which means that he has a paper loss of more than 37,000 yuan. Of course, this is still far from the forced liquidation of the futures company. After checking the futures trend, Chen Changliu continued to improve his marketing plan. Whether this shot is good or not depends on whether this marketing plan can impress the other party. After the opening at 3 p.m., beans began to rise slowly. At 4 o'clock, they rose rapidly and soon broke through 2,900 points. Chen Changliu did not sell at this time. She patiently waited for the opportunity. When it rose to 2,925 points, he sold all his hands. Net profit of 72,000 yuan. total assets of 670,000 yuan. After Chen Changliu sold out his position, soybean price continued to rise, reaching 29.35 at the afternoon close. Chen Changliu felt that the feast of October was about to begin. P.S. I will update the typos first and then correct them. Chapter 57, Little Millionaire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At night, Chen Changliu and Kumeng sat in front of the computer desk in the study room. Of course, they sat on one chair instead of two. Kumeng sat on Chen Changliu's thigh, but her face was flushed, and she leaned weakly on Chen Changliu's chest. Chen Changliu stared at the computer screen seriously. Kumeng suddenly bit Chen Changliu's ear, but it was useless. Instead, Chen Changliu's whole body stiffened. He took 2 breaths before he could bear it. Little pervert, what do you think about all day long? Chen Changliu laughed and stared at the computer without stopping his hand movements. He said, Senior sister, I think about you all day long, thinking about how to make money to support you. Don't you see that I am exhausted every day? Looking at Chen Changliu's shameless words, if you only look at his expression and not his current behavior, maybe someone will really believe it. Anyway, Kumeng doesn't believe it. Just as Kumeng was about to fight back, Chen Changliu suddenly started to operate the computer through her. Kumeng looked over and found that the price of soybeans had been falling from a high of 29.35 to 29.10, but Chen Changliu suddenly stopped again. He was still waiting. Finally, after it fell below 2900, Chen Changliu started to buy. At the average price of 2,895, he bought 231 lots. When all the operations were completed, Chen Changliu finally breathed a sigh of relief, but Kumeng stared at the computer and said, You can wait a little longer. It's still falling now. No need, this is just an adjustment. I judge that the upward trend will not stop. Okay, there's no need to watch it. Let's do some exercises that are beneficial to weight loss. After saying that, without waiting for Kumeng to exclaim, he directly hugged Kumeng's 2 thighs who were still sitting on his thighs, lifted them up, and walked towards the bedroom. Kumeng's face instantly turned red, redder than a monkey's ass, because she just had her back to Chen Changliu, and when Chen Changliu hugged her like this, anyway, her face couldn't be any redder, and she wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Chen Changliu, put me down, you bastard. Hee, no, I still have a support point now. Where will you get the support point if I put you down? Kumeng would never have thought that there would be a female celebrity with a curved face in the future who liked this tune. Ridiculous night. From that day on, Chen Changliu skipped classes whenever he could, and even Bai Jing couldn't find him to participate in the welcome party at the end of the month, and she had to get his mobile phone number through the 311 dormitory to contact him. But Chen Changliu was not interested and refused directly. On October 9, soybeans rose 40 points at the opening, from the closing price of 2,880 on the 8th to 29.20, and then continued to rise, reaching a high of 29.71. When the price was slowly adjusted back, Chen Changliu decisively closed his positions and sold all of them at 29.60, making a net profit of 150,000 yuan and a total account asset of 820,000 yuan. This is the strategy that Chen Changliu has set. He tries to close and sell his positions every day when he makes a profit, and then buy more contracts, so that he can make as much money as possible from this wave. When it adjusted to 29.43, Chen Changliu went long again with all his positions, buying 278 lots. He is not afraid of soybeans plummeting now. As far as he can remember, soybeans will only plummet 200 points a day in the few days after October 20th. At that time, he will pay attention to it and leave enough margin to cover his positions in time in those days. Anyway, how it fell will also rise back. On October 10th, the opening price was 30 points higher than yesterday's price, and then it continued to rise, jumping around 30.20 and reaching a high of 30.26. Chen Changliu sold all his shares at 30.20, and his total assets finally broke through 1 million, reaching 1.03 million, becoming a millionaire. Although a millionaire in 2003 was considered a small wealthy man with a small amount of assets, his mentality did not fluctuate too much. Then he bought 340 lots at 3,025 before the closing of the market in the evening. The final closing price was 30.25. On the morning of October 13th, The U.S. Department of Agriculture's October monthly agricultural product supply and demand report once again lowered the production of new U.S. soybeans, estimating that the U.S. soybean production in 2003 would be 2.468 billion bushels, which was far lower than the average market analyst expectation of 2.578 billion bushels before the monthly report was released, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture's estimate of 2.643 billion bushels in September. The soybean yield per unit area in 2003-04 is estimated to be the lowest since 1993, and the international soybean supply situation is even more severe. Stimulated by the huge positive news, Dalian soybean and soybean meal futures opened on October 13 and all prices were capped. The price of soybean number 1 was capped at the price of 30.90. Looking at the price of soybean number 1 that was capped at the price limit, Chen Changliu cursed. It only rose by 75 points and then reached the limit. How much money will he lose? This puts pressure on him to make 2 million before the 18th. However, no matter how much he cursed, it was useless. Looking at the number of buy orders, he didn't dare to sell what he had, otherwise he wouldn't even be able to buy it again. Depressed Chen Changliu had to go back to school. Since Kumeng was taken away by Chen Changliu last time, she could no longer make an appointment with Kumeng, and the tone on the phone was full of indifference, which made him very angry, and he hated Chen Changliu who took Kumeng away. Moreover, he felt it was a great shame that 3 men on his side were intimidated by Chen Changliu that day, and one of his brothers had to go to the hospital for stitches. Suddenly, one of the lackeys screamed, "Brother Hao, that guy over there is the boyfriend that Kumeng admitted to in the cafeteria last time. It's him. I recognize him. P.S. I will update the typos first and then correct them." Chapter 58, Surrounded Again, Fill in the Blanks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Hao followed the gaze of the lackeys and saw Chen Changliu walking slowly on the campus. He recognized Chen Changliu immediately and then his face became ferocious. One of the lackeys was the guy who persuaded Lin Hao to drink in the box that day. He shouted in surprise, "Brother Hao, isn't that guy the bastard who took Kumeng away in the restaurant that day?" "I have eyes, can't I see it?" Lin Hao was annoyed. "Is it honorable to bring up the pot?" After Lin Hao scolded the lackeys so badly that he dared not speak, he led the 3 lackeys to rush towards Chen Changliu. When Chen Changliu saw the expressions of Lin Hao and others, he could only smile bitterly in his heart. As expected, beauty is a disaster. Is this the second time he has been surrounded? But he said with a smile on his face, "Hey, isn't this Senior Lin Hao? Why, don't you have classes either?" Looking at the smile on Chen Changliu's face, Lin Hao was even more furious, and said viciously, "Boy, what is your relationship with Kumeng? You beat up my people that day, and we have to settle the score today." "Hee, Senior Lin Hao, can't you see what the relationship is between me and Senior Sister Kumeng?" No way, Senior Lin Hao is so innocent. TSK, how come he is different from the rumored scumbag Senior? Pucci. Chen Changliu's exaggerated tone directly made one of Lin Hao's younger brothers laugh, and then he held back in Lin Hao's vicious eyes. "Humph, kid, no matter how eloquent you are, you can't get over this today. Why, are you going to beat me up here? You are not afraid of punishment, but I am afraid of being punished. How about this, let's go out of school together to solve it now, there should be no problem, right?" Chen Changliu's words surprised Lin Hao and others again. Is this kid crazy? Doesn't he know that we are going to beat him up? He took the initiative to go out of school together to solve it. Is there any conspiracy? But we are 4-1, and he can't know in advance that he will meet like this. What conspiracy can there be? After thinking these things through, Lin Hao finally made a decision. Okay, go out now. After saying that, he also used his eyes to tell the lackeys to surround Chen Changliu to prevent him from running away suddenly. Chen Changliu was too lazy to play tricks with them. He was a person who had been training in Sonda for 2 years as an amateur, and his physical strength was also at its peak. He really dared to fight a few students who had little experience in fighting or had never encountered tough guys. just to vent the frustration of the sudden limit up in the futures market. 15 minutes later, Chen Changliu walked into the school with a little skin on the corner of his mouth and a slightly swollen right cheek. If you don't look carefully, you really don't know that he is injured, while Lin Hao and the other four are even more miserable and helped each other up. Among them, Lin Hao's two dark circles are the most obvious, and the faces of the others are swollen. Oh my God, this pervert is so cruel, my face hurts. Brother Hao, this person is so cruel, my face hurts. Lin Hao was taking a breath, the frustration in his heart was as uncomfortable as the pain on his face. This was the second time, and this time he was also beaten. Damn, call more people next time, I want to see how many he can beat. Also, you three are really useless. We beat him, but you three bastards are more cowardly than anyone else. I am so angry. Lin Hao was getting more and more angry and was about to step forward and kick the three lackeys one by one. The three dodged and begged for mercy from Lin Hao, and then the alley became a mess again. After venting, Chen Changliu was relieved. After the teacher called the roll, he sneaked out from the back before the get-out of class was over. But when Kumeng saw Chen Changliu, she carefully and keenly discovered the injuries on Chen Changliu's face. After she repeatedly asked, Chen Changliu told her about being surrounded by Lin Hao in the afternoon. You don't know how brave your man is. They are just a few chickens. One punch each can deal with them directly. They are all a bunch of cowards. Chen Changliu made the story very easy and funny, but Kumeng did not laugh. Instead, she burst into tears. The man in front of her was engraved deeper and deeper in her heart. Chen Changliu had no choice but to hug her and whisper something in her ear, which finally made her angry and her face flushed. That night, Chen Changliu had the most enjoyable day since his rebirth. It can be said that he enjoyed it like an emperor, and he was more and more glad that he had promised to take care of Kumeng's matter. This woman is a goblin, fill in the blanks, on the bed, under the bed. In the case of great risks in the futures market, the Dalian Commodity Exchange urgently introduced a series of risk mitigation measures in the early morning of October 14 to avoid the risk of many brokerage companies being liquidated due to a one-way rise. The measure stipulates that on October 14 and October 15, 2003, the price limit of the number 1 soybean contract was adjusted to 1.5% of the settlement price of the previous trading day, and the margin was implemented according to the margin standard after the settlement on October 13. On October 16, the price limit was adjusted to 6% of the settlement price of the previous trading day, and the margin system returned to normal. From October 17, the normal price limit system was restored. At the opening of the market in the morning, the price of soybean number 1 directly reached the limit, but the price of 3,136 still made Chen Changliu dissatisfied. Although he bought 340 lots at the price of 3,025 on the 12th, he made a net profit of nearly 380,000 in these 2 days, and the total assets of his account reached 1.4 million, but if there were no such damn rules, he could have bought a lot more contracts between buying and selling, and he would have made more money, and it is possible that he would have made 2 million now. But no matter how depressed Chen Changliu was, he still stayed in front of the computer every day, waiting for the daily limit to be opened. On October 15, as soon as the market opened in the morning, soybean futures still rose directly to the daily limit, and the price of 3,183 made Chen Changliu speechless, just 47 points higher. However, Chen Changliu's waiting was rewarded. As soon as the market opened in the afternoon, the daily limit was directly opened and began to fall. Chen Changliu quickly sold all at the price of 31.75, making a net profit of 510,000 in 3 days, and the total assets reached 1.54 million. Because the daily limit of soybean futures was opened and the price went down all the way, Chen Changliu easily bought enough contracts, buying 487 lots at an average price of 31.60. When the operation was completed, he breathed a sigh of relief. However, the price did not stop falling, and it did not stop until it reached 31.40. In just a short while, he lost nearly 100,000 yuan, but he did not mind. Sure enough, in the 5 minutes before the end of the afternoon session, D was directly capped at the daily limit. Chen Changliu smiled like a fool. In this round, he made another 110,000 yuan. Chen Changliu was happy, but for the futures market, the impact of 3 consecutive daily limits in the same direction is multifaceted. P.S. Typos will be updated first and corrected later. Chapter 59, Love Grows Over Time. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dalian Commodity Exchange directly announced that starting from October 10, the soybean number 1 contract has reached the price limit in the same direction for 3 consecutive trading days, and the exchange will implement forced position reduction. The specific measures for forced position reduction shall be in accordance with the Dalian Commodity Exchange risk. The provisions of Article 20 of the management measures shall be implemented. Chen Changliu and Kumeng were reading the announcement in the study. Chen Changliu was calm and relaxed, and Kumeng had also been an intern at a futures company for 2 months, so he was definitely more sensitive and interested in these things. After reading all the relevant information for a long time, she said to Chen Changliu, after 3 consecutive lower limits, the exchange will generally arrange profitable short orders and loss-making long positions, hanging at the lower limit, to close the positions to resolve risks, but it should have no impact on you. I hope so, but no matter what, we did make a profit. This is something to be happy about. Your 10,000 yuan has turned into more than 20,000 yuan. I am a little rich woman. Do you want to treat me to barbecue and ice cream? Beer. Hee, for the sake of making money for me, how about I give you some face and treat me to a barbecue? Isn't that grand? Hey, it's the other way around, shouldn't you be the one who invited me? Well, thank you to the beautiful lady for the compliment. After the two were laughing and joking, Chen Changliu ran out of the community to buy a barbecue and a beer, and the two started having sex by themselves in the living room. Little man, there are only 3 days until the 18th. It's no problem. Otherwise, I'd better prepare my family to sell off some fixed assets as soon as possible. Kumeng drank some wine and asked a little worriedly. Although the price of selling it as soon as possible would definitely be much lower than usual, it could buy Chen Changliu time. It's okay. I know it well. There are already 1.5 million in the futures account. Based on the current situation, it should be no problem to break through 2 million in 2 days. However, due to the limited daily limit in these 3 days, the speed of making money did not meet my expectations, which will affect the research and development of flower growers' products. I'll see in 2 days. If it still doesn't meet my expectations, we can repay 1 million first and then another 1 million after a week. Anyway, usury is easy to negotiate, and it's not as rigid as the contract signed with Lin Hao and his family. During this period, although the interest rate is high, it is nothing compared with the futures market. In fact, Chen Changliu is conservative. If he was bolder and found someone to allocate some funds, he could make money much faster than now. He thought about it, but gave up, first, because futures financing falls within the scope of regulatory crackdowns and is too risky. The second is that he only knows the general trend, but does not know when it will plummet. After allocating funds and using 10 times the leverage, his position will be liquidated by accident. It is not as safe as now. After listening to Chen Changliu's words, Kumeng felt much more at ease. She had watched Chen Changliu's account grow from 170,000 yuan to more than 1.5 million now, in just over a month. Thinking of this, she looked at Chen Changliu with eyes full of love. Chen Changliu also understood Kumeng's eyes, and said coquettishly, "What do you think, senior sister? Do you think I'm sunny, handsome, and capable, and then you fell in love with me deeply, or are we?" "It's been a long time since I've been in love." Kumeng was immediately off guard by Chen Changliu's words. He rushed over to him, sat down on him, and bit down. Ah! The scream was so pitiful that those who didn't know thought he was being treated inhumanely. Kumeng also thought he bit too hard, but at first glance, it was just tooth marks and the skin was not broken. As the ancient said, fullness and warmth lead to lust and lust. The more the two of them eat and drink, the hotter their bodies become. Even the air conditioner cannot suppress their enthusiasm. After a long time, the room gradually calmed down. Sure enough, driven by the soaring futures price of CBO, Chicago Futures Trading Market, the Dalian market continued to fully seal the daily limit on October 14 and 15. According to regulations, The Dalian Commodity Exchange will deal with all short positions of customers who have insufficient margins and those who have declared to close their positions but failed to do so, and whose unit net position loss is greater than or equal to 5% of tonight's settlement price, and the long positions with larger profits. Hedging, forced lightning, at tonight's closing settlement, the exchange, in accordance with risk management methods, carried out forced reduction of a large number of positions accumulated at the daily limit of Lian-Do. The positions of 0401, 0405 and 0311 contracts were forced to be reduced by 98,610 hands, 84,284 hands and 25,452 hands respectively, after the forced reduction of positions. The total holdings of Lian Bean decreased to 426,156 lots on that day, and the positions in each contract were less than 100,000 lots. The huge floating profits of the market's main bulls are cashed into actual profits after settlement on the day. When they woke up the next morning, neither Chen Changliu nor Kumeng went to the company or school. They sat in front of their laptops in the study room early. There was still some time before leaving the market. Kumeng said while browsing relevant information. Are you still optimistic that soybeans will continue to rise? Under normal circumstances, after the main players in the market win and finally realize profits, the market will adjust for a considerable period of time, and market trading interest will also become light due to the withdrawal of large funds, but this time the situation is different. The market situation is dominated by the strong support of positive macro fundamentals, and there is almost no reliance on funds to manipulate the market. Judging from the current spot prices in the international and domestic markets, the current futures price of beans should be said to be on the low side. The main bulls are passively cashing in profits under the restrictions of exchange rules, since the tight spot supply of soybeans caused by the sharp reduction in U.S. soybean production will continue at least until mid-2004, the main bulls are still likely to return to the market and go long again after being forced out. However, technically speaking, after more than 2 months of sharp rise in CBO, Chicago Board of Trade, soybean futures prices, the current price is already high, and objectively there is a need for adjustment in futures prices. Although the Dalian Commodity Exchange futures price is low, there is the same problem technically. After the U.S. Department of Agriculture's monthly report in October, the U.S. soybean production has been roughly determined. The subsequent monthly report is only a minor adjustment, and the factors of reduced production should be basically digested, so I think soybeans will continue to rise, but the space should not be very large. P.S. Typos will be corrected first and then corrected. Chapter 60. Are you running towards the goal of failing all your subjects? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chen Changliu listened to Kumeng's analysis and combined it with the sporadic information from his previous life. Chen Changliu shook his head and said, On the supply side, new beans from the northern hemisphere will be available in large quantities in late October, which seems to alleviate market anxiety. At the current high level, market buyers, especially domestic buyers, have basically stopped further purchasing actions. From late October to mid-November, the market supply and demand relationship will definitely be eased to a certain extent. Moreover, in the southern hemisphere, with the sharp rise in futures prices, the sown area will increase significantly again. Brazil's Ministry of Agriculture recently predicted that its new soybean planting area will reach 21 million hectares, an increase of 14%. Argentina's Ministry of Agriculture predicts that soybean sown area will reach 13 to 14 million hectares in 2003-2004, an increase of 2% to 7%. This will put pressure on forward contracts, thereby suppressing further price increases in near-term contracts. Various information indicates that the days of skyrocketing soybean prices are over, but I don't think so. The trend of world soybean consumption growing at about 5% per year and farmers' reluctance to sell will drive up futures prices from the spot side in the long term. The current forward discount phenomenon in the CBO, Chicago Board of Trade, soybean market also proves from the side that the bull market will continue. Therefore, I think the main funds are likely to seek to re-enter the market to do long positions while waiting for a correction in the CBO, Chicago Futures Trading Market, of course. I do not rule out that if the sowing weather in South America deteriorates, the main funds will chase the rise at a high level. The overall operational thinking of investors in the later period should still be mainly long. But no matter what, the price of soybeans can still go up, so going long is the best choice. While Kumeng was analyzing Chen Changliu's statement, the morning market opened. The opening price was 3,220, which was a direct increase of 37 points from yesterday's closing price, and the price continued to rise after the opening, 32.30, 32.40, 32.50, 32.60. Kumeng was extremely excited. Such a surge meant that Chen Changliu would earn more from the contract in his hands, but at this time, Chen Changliu was very calm. No matter what, it was impossible to seal the daily limit today. He thought about it and sold everything he had at the price of 32.90, for 87 lots. The average buying price was 31.60, and the selling price was 32.90, with a net profit of 630,000, and his total assets reached 2.15 million. Seeing that the price of D was still rising after Chen Changliu sold it, Kumeng felt it was a pity. When it exceeded 3,300, Kumeng felt even more pity. At the close of the morning market, the price of beans was 33.05, however, Kumeng's regret didn't last long and turned into happiness, causing him to break into a cold sweat. The situation suddenly changed in the afternoon, and the price of beans began to fall, and there was no sign of stopping. When the price of D fell below 3,200, Kumeng was shocked and broke into a cold sweat. Chen Changliu was okay. At least his previous average price was 3,160. Even if it fell, he would not lose money, but would only make less money. But for many people who made long purchases at high prices, it was a direct disaster. A 100-point drop meant that they lost 30% of their blood. Some people were forced to close their positions by the futures company before they had time to make additional purchases. When the price fell to 31.82, it finally stopped the downward trend, but there was no sign of an increase. At this time, Chen Changliu directly filled his position with 670 lots at the average price of 3,190. The whole afternoon trading was hovering in the 3190 to 3200 range. During dinner, Chen Changliu received a call from Counselor Wu Ling. Chen Changliu, you are awesome. Since the beginning of school, you have missed more classes than you have attended. Are you running towards the goal of failing all subjects? Wu Ling's angry voice came from the phone, and even Kumeng, who was sitting opposite Chen Changliu, could hear it clearly. With a poof sound, she burst out laughing, and then immediately suppressed her laughter under Chen Changliu's threatening gaze, but the flush on her face gave her away. Chen Changliu, are you going to break the school's record and become the first student to fail all subjects? It is understandable that Wu Ling is angry with Chen Changliu. She has already asked Zhao Wuyan to remind her. At this time, he could only lick his face and say, "Counselor, how dare I do that? The main reason is that my family is poor and I have to earn the tuition and living expenses myself. Because I just came to Yangcheng and I am not very skilled in the part-time job I found, so it took a little more time. Don't worry, after this month, I won't be like this, I promise you." Anyway, after talking for a long time, they finally finished dealing with Huang Wuling. As soon as they hung up the phone, Kumeng raised his voice and imitated what Chen Changliu had just said. "Counselor, how dare I do that? The main reason is that my family is poor." The sound of the clip was as disgusting as it was. Chen Changliu was so angry that he grabbed her onto his lap and climbed on it, and then slapped Kumeng's big butt several times. After playing around for a while, Chen Changliu shook his head and smiled bitterly. It seemed that this kind of learning was a bit unnecessary and not free at all. What reason should he find to avoid going to class for a long time and not having to take roll call? After thinking about it, I still can't think of any excuse, but just wait until this month is over. Now I have to seize the time to make money, solve Kumeng's matter, and then inject a batch of funds into the company. Thinking about it, it seems that I have broken my promise again. I said that I would pay the company in mid-October, but the damn 3-day limit on the daily price increase directly prevented him from doing what he said. Forget it, I said mid-month, and the 20th seems to be related to mid-month. When these are solved, there will be no need to stare at the computer so much, and the flower-growing family will not need him to keep an eye on it all the time. In this way, I can have more time to return to school. At least I can't skip more classes than I spend in class. P.S. Typos will be updated first and corrected later. Warm reminder. If you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to let us know. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding.